So this is the first time I've met Rens, and he's an assistant professor at Eindhoven University of Technology and is working in the area of industrial design, but in particular focusing on dementia and healthy aging. And I learned today that he's in the same department as Stephen Huben, who some of you may know was a postdoc of mine here a few years ago. And another interesting fact is that Stephen Huben has a brother who is following in his footsteps, who's a bit younger. So, you know, that's if you have a younger sibling, you can, you know, maybe influence them to do HCI. But anyway, over to you, Rens. I do like this title, Inclusive Design and Warm Technology. It's exactly what we need today for older adults.
Yeah, thank you. We'll say hi to all of you because we had a good time here, and then we're now a little over a year working with us. So it's really exciting. All right, so what I want to talk to you about is the work that I've been doing. So I'm working both in theory as well as in University of Applied Science, and I try to combine those two fields in my work. And the premise is that basically, do I have the right? Yes. No, I have the wrong. Sorry. Sorry, I just quickly switched my my slides because otherwise they don't match with the ones that are shared online. Actually, sorry for that.
And it will be in Dutch.
Yes, these are in Dutch. Exactly. The word is
It's a University of Applied Science.
So it's now split between University of Applied Science and kind of the traditional universities, which are kind of more settled. I think here in the UK they are both called universities. You have rankings to make a difference, and you're two separate kind of groups. Yeah. All right. This is what I wanted to talk about. So yeah, here we have a nice picture of how we would like to see ourselves growing older. It's nice together that we have we can enjoy life. Unfortunately, that is for
Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally forgotten.
Thank you.
There you go.
So thanks. So those online. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, but this, of course, is not for everyone the case. We know that, right? Things happen to people. People get chronic illnesses, and then life suddenly takes a turn and becomes very sometimes challenging to take up on. So, this is what we're interested in. How can we actually aid in this with technology? I had a research visit at UTS in Sydney, and there I came actually across this sign. You know, warning here, old people could walk around here, take a look around and be careful. And it's in a way how we look at older people. We look at them as something that we have to kind of contain, be aware of. But what we try to do is we work more towards including people in our society, making them full participants. And how can we do that with the things we design for them? And of course, from the angle we're taking there is the opportunities we have in technology and that we have with innovation. And one of the reasons why this is very important is also because the medical part. So I'm focusing specifically on how can we support people living with dementia. We do more projects, of course, but that's kind of the core focus that we're looking into. Unfortunately, the medical direction there is still very far away, right? So this is a message from few years ago where the pharmaceutical industry is saying like, hey, we're no longer investing in finding a cure for dementia because it takes too long before it has effect. So the money for them was too far away, so to say, for them to now invest. So those are kind of scary messages, I would say, but it means that in the meantime, so while this group of people with dementia is growing, we cannot rely on medicine to find ourselves a solution. So we have to find alternatives. And one of those alternatives can be technology. So where are we coming from in this challenge of designing technology for people with dementia? So we have these three core guiding principles that we follow. So first is we want to avoid complexity. Makes sense, but often what we see in technology in practice for this group is very complicated. when you Google people with dementia and technology, you can see that actually what comes back on the search result is actually all kinds of tablets and the smartphone applications, which is interesting because people with dementia actually are no longer able to use them. So there seems a mismatch between what we offer for them and what we actually see is being used in practice. The second is, and that's mostly a message for other TUs, so technical universities, is we don't want to focus on the technology as the goal itself, but want to see it as a means to help people with dementia. And the last one is we take a person-centered perspective. So we see that transition in care practice already happening. So it's moving towards person-centered practice where the perspective of the person cared for is leading in the care you provide. So this example is actually someone working in a night shift of a dementia ward. And instead of working the white uniform, which is easy to clean, they're using this kind of night robe because there is an association with sleep there. Yeah? So that's what we call person-centered care. And we try to transition that to person-centered technology. 2 years ago, we wrote a paper, a book chapter on framing like what we see is currently happening in the field of technology in this care domain. And we found these 5, we call them the temptations, referencing to the harpies of Odysseus, like the temptations of technology that we as technology designers often are lured into. First one is that we see technology as a solution for everything often. Well, we have to be very critical when technology is meaningful and when it's not. The second, we see screens everywhere. We see sensors being used everywhere. We see that natural interaction, so for example, speech interaction technology is often used as assuming to overcome kind of interaction hurdles. But we see in practice that something like speech interaction is very difficult for people with dementia. And then the last one is that we sometimes try to integrate all the services that we can come up with in the same technological shell, and then no longer having a technology that is really purposeful or intentful for its use case. So what we define based on these kind of insights, what we define, we call this warm technology. So it's kind of a concept that we coined basically in this work, but we are trying to develop it now further. So it's not an established term, but it's just a way of thinking for us, like, hey, how do we frame this technology that actually works in this kind of healthcare domain? It's based on taking a socially just and inclusive approach to designing technology. And what is important is what we often saw in technology, that people were not viewed as unique individuals. They were just kind of put in one box as people with dementia. And we try to move away from that and at least look like what are the qualities of people individually, and how can we embrace that in the technology that we use. And the last point is that we want to contribute to the human connection. We call that warmth, refer to that as warmth, human connection in healthcare. So what is an example then of technology that embraces that? So this is inspired by my own grandpa. He had dementia when I started working on my PhD. It was 2012, and I saw him struggling with wayfinding. So finding the place where to go in public space. He often could go to places, but then the way back home was really challenging for him to find. The technology that is available from the shelf, that is now, I think also here in the UK, widely spread, is GPS tracking software. So here we have a GPS tracker. We give that to the person or we place it on the person, and then we allow the environment, so the family and the caregivers, to trace back the person. But looking back to what I just said about warm technology, this doesn't match because the person is still lost, still trying to find where to go. So it's helping actually solve the problem, but it doesn't contribute to the experience of what is happening here. So what I designed is, we call it the homing compass. So we created a small device, and it has only one functionality, always pointing home. So there is a GPS sensor in there, so it still can be traced if needed. But in the first instance, it's a device for people to help themselves, to really have something to reach for when they are lost in public space. And by keeping it simple, and also by having the aesthetic be designed as something they know, a compass, they are able to understand it when they have it in front of them. So this is what we're trying to do, is to rethink the technologies that we're currently using in this context of dementia and see how we can improve them and make them more person-centered, and we call that warm technology. So this is probably what you're familiar with. What is then the process on the background? So we call this research through design. So we really work with prototypes, physical prototypes, and these objects, we put them in the hands of people in the field to learn how they approach them, how they use them, and how they then then make them better over several iterations. So this is what we call warm technology. So we follow that research to design process. Also, that's of course what we are kind of, I think, in Eindhoven familiar with, to work with physical, tangible objects. What we found is what we need to do is to get these prototypes to, we call them research products. So they need to be up to a level where they can really be experienced without all the errors that maybe prototypes might have, because then people are kind of letting go of these technologies very easily. So we have to get them to a quality level that they can actually be used as if they are real products in real life, so that we can follow how they change those lives. And it contributes, of course, to the ecological validity of the results that we have. And one important thing is also where we contribute in our research is to not just work for people with dementia, but actually work with them, right? So change our co-design methods, change our design approaches that we have to make them suitable for people with dementia from all stages, right? From early, mid to later stages. So what I have now is a few examples of projects that we've done and some papers to reference to. So this is actually from Maarten, so that's Stefan's little brother. I worked with him. He just graduated from his PhD, but I worked with him on several of these projects. This is the Vita case, Vita, a musical pillow as a case study for how we can design in the field of dementia. This is focused on people in the later stages. And we did it together with a care organization, Pleiade. And I have a short video. I don't know how that if that's going to work. Yeah, on what the concept is. Sorry. Yeah, so it's not that. So it's about the images. They speak for themselves. So you see people responding to, they hear their favorite music, they recognize it, and they sing along to it. They tell stories about what they think about when they hear these familiar sounds. And in general, it's really it lights up people in a way, right? Sometimes people with dementia can really turn into themselves, and when listening to these favorite songs, they really open up. So it's really valuable in this care practice to have music available. But the problem is that the way we offer music or we kind of use music for ourselves, it's really challenging, right? We cannot transfer Spotify to a care environment. So we were looking for a way to make it accessible in different ways. Well, we used our research through design approach here. What we did is we really started with really basic prototype. So basically, this is a Bluetooth speaker we just got out of the shop, a sleeping pillow. And that's on day one, we went, into the care home and see, does it make sense what we tried to do here? Does it make sense to offer music via a pillow interface, right? And so by going into practice and to really involve people into kind of this experience, we were able to elicit what worked, what didn't work, and see how we could move the project further. And eventually we made a research product that could be really tested for the long term into this context. What was really important, the pillow itself is something that was accessible in healthcare, because it's a pillow. It's not something that is put into the closet. It's actually something that lies around there, so people could always take it. Also, there was no app needed to control it, so a very simple interface with volume, a button to select a profile. They could customize it, make it personal for everyone on the care department. So they just press the button to find a certain person, and then they would have kind of their own personal soundscape to listen to these sounds and music. So what we found is that this contributes to elicit memories and stories in context. So it helps caregivers to understand people with dementia better, to adjust their care practice. It evokes curiosity and playfulness from the people with dementia, and also they respond to each other, so they build on each other's experiences, and it contributes to a non-verbal communication that can be offered in the care space. So what we try to do in our research, this is I don't know if you know this, but it's an overview from Almiral, where he looks at the kind of ways we conduct user research, and he puts that on a map from lab setting to real life environment, involving users as subjects of study to users as co-creators, and then he maps all these methodologies that we apply. And what we try to do in this work is to actually move from just using kind of people as test subjects to understand what we've created, to really move to a space where we kind of collaborate with people together, and to build an understanding of how they respond to what we make, and then adjust that and remake the things. So we refer to this environment as a living lab setting. So there we can involve people as co-creators of the technology. So in view of time, so I have two, I see we're running out a little bit already. So I have, I think, two more cases to showcase like what we've been doing. This is a project where we focus more on the care professional side. So how can we change work for care professionals and support them with this interactive technology as well. I have a short video for that. Maybe before I have the video, so this is Sam. It's basically two small interactive objects as kind of interactive spheres that respond to each other, but also to touch and different kinds of touch from the users. Is the video working? Yeah, thanks. Wearing a Ray-Ban. So what these balls did is they make small sounds to invoke interaction. And then by taking them, they would kind of respond differently. They're connected to each other. So when only one ball is picked up, the other one would become jealous and would also try to get attention. So one of the underlying problems that we found is that actually because of the pressure on care staff, there's no time to actually have a conversation with someone with dementia in this kind of formal care setting. And people would sit around a table and they would put the wheelchair there, and then everyone would just wait until dinner is served. So this object was there to create kind of social interaction in those kind of moments when there is no one available. And what we saw is by just having something trigger a response, so doing a kind of gesture, an invitation of interaction, they would also start interacting with each other more, right? So by having this small trigger that usually a person would give, having this object do that, it kind of created this interactive social environment there. So it's a tool for care practice. Also, they felt less guilty, of course, because they felt they could still go on with their other work when leaving someone in another space. And also we found that the care professionals were much more open to adopt other technologies after doing with us this project, right? So they co-designed this project. So they selected the materials, the qualities, the behaviors. So we went through quite a deep process together with him. And by doing that, they understood what it was, and they really became kind of champions of this product, but also of other technologies that we or the care organization wanted to bring into that domain. I think I have two. Yeah, I think this is my last case. So this is a paper we published last year at CHI about supporting communication between people with dementia. This is again more in the early stages of dementia, where we found that people with dementia living at home, of course they have social communication with their family members and their friends, and when dementia comes in, that communication is often cut off. And then the caregiver becomes a gateway, kind of a gatekeeper of communication. So all the communication goes indirectly to the person with dementia. So we were thinking, like, how can we design a communication system that can overcome that? And what we came up with is the living moments, which we made in a fully functional prototype with which we did a full kind of a field evaluation of it. And basically the premise of this is that we wanted to have kind of social media messages from family members to be printed as postcards, so that people would not have kind of to receive them on screen. They could receive them as tangible objects, and they could experience them in that way. And I think I should have another video to present this. I don't know why the audio is not working, but I can narrate. So this is the system, and messages are printed as postcards, and then the postcard could be put on top of the system, and then the media would be played. So by putting the card on top of the system, you would get a video or an audio message or whatever the family members would provide. So here you can put the message on top, and then it would show the media that was attached. And then this last part, and that was what we were most interested in, is can we then let a person respond to it in their own kind of, within their own abilities? And we made 4 response options on the side. One is a selfie, one is just a like, so they could just say, hey, I like that message. Another one is a spoken message, and the most kind of difficult one was just typing something. So they could respond in a way that would be fitting for them. What we found is by adapting these kind of responsibilities to the level of the people could really choose for themselves what would fit for them. So people more in the early stages could still type messages. People in the later stages were only able to kind of give a like back, which was also fine. But by having that response mechanism in there, family were more motivated to continue sending more messages. And in addition to this, we also found that by having the system in place, the other means of social contact actually increased. So by having this system there, people would call each other more often, they would visit more often. So by having this kind of way of communicating directly, we actually made sure that people had their own direct contact more often. So that's it for my talk. So just to give you some showcases in the work that we've been doing in the context of dementia. So these are just 4 of the kind of design cases that we have worked on over the past years, but on our website we have much more cases in all kinds of different directions if you're interested in that. Together with the Dutch Alzheimer Fund, it's called Alzheimer Nederland, we set up a research center. It's called ECDT. So if you want to see more of our work, but also the PhD projects that we have, you can have a look at our website. And the goal of this ECDT is to bring different disciplines in the technology domain together, right? Because we are from the design department, but there's also other departments, and we really want to build on all these strengths together. And the last thing is what we also want to facilitate, which is sometimes difficult as a university, is to really have people with dementia directly involved, right? So to have them join us in our work. And what we have set up is every Wednesday afternoon, for example, we have a group of people with dementia coming together where we can let students, PhDs, other researchers join, talk to the people, put their prototypes on the table, and to really have this kind of community feeling together with them as well. Also wrote a book in the HCI series of Springer 2 years ago. If you're interested, I can provide you a copy. So let me know. So here we kind of invited people from all around the world that are working in this field to kind of give their current and recent developments on this work, so that we have a kind of collected edition of what everyone is working on. Lastly, I wanted to invite you. So we just heard that our course is accepted for Kai, which is building further on this work. So what we are going to focus on is the ethical challenges of working in these sensitive settings. So I think we need at least 10 participants to be able to give the course. So it's an invitation for anyone who is interested to learn more about this, or get some hands-on tools to work in these sensitive settings. Then please join us in this course. It's called HCI Research in Dementia. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Hi, really great talk. A great idea. I love the communication between people, and it's just really great. So I have 3 small comments.
Yeah, sure.
So the first one is, when you mentioned the Alzheimer's at the beginning, maybe it'd be just useful also to know that it's not just because to save money that they don't diagnose them early, it's also to save them from side effects. So it's not just all black. It's the doctors are wary of diagnosing Alzheimer's too soon, because when they start taking drugs, lots of the patients actually suffer side effects from the medicine itself.
Yeah.
So there is this fine balance to be, because they can't cure them. The drugs can't cure them anyway. They are for the symptoms. And so the doctors have to decide to start giving the drugs when those symptoms are really
light.
Severe, like they don't want to give them too early.
Yes. Yeah.
Because otherwise the side effects can be quite severe as well. Yeah. So that's just one comment.
So what I mean here is that, so in the Netherlands, I think there's a big project on developing actually a medicine, but I didn't want to dive too much in the details of the pathology itself. But what we see is that drugs have to be administered 20 years before symptoms occur. So I'm not talking about medicine for tackling the side effects, but actually preventing dementia to manifest.
No, so
it needs to be administered.
But they also have side effects.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So
they have severe side effects.
So this is why it's actually quite insightful talk that I heard in the Dementia Center about that from the clinicians, which was quite surprising and eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Because you always think you want to find out as early as possible, but actually
here
that's not really the solution always. But what I want to talk about is the ball. I really love that idea, and I was wondering, do patients sometimes kind of get saturated, like, because it has a very simple color changes? I mean, do the patients after a while need the ball to evolve? Do they get bored with it, or and can that be programmed into a ball to kind of to evolve and change the way, or the patients are just happy and they are happy with the whole thing being repeated over and over again in the same pattern? I mean, did you explore that?
That's a really good point that came up in the field study we did here. Basically, there's a docking station for charging here, and there you could set different teams, so to say. So we already built in like 10 teams. So people could also, one person likes spring sounds, someone likes car sounds even, for example, in it, right? So we really try to see like who is living here. Can we make teams of soundscapes that are fitting for these, the people that are living here, so that it's personalized, and also that there's some variation in there. And the behavior was really simple of the thing. I wouldn't even call it behavior. There was just some kind of, you could stroke it, you could tap it, you could kind of put them next to each other or away from each other. So I think this is kind of a starting point for something to evolve further on how to really engage people longer. Yeah, but it's a good point. It definitely came up in the study.
We've hit 2 minutes past 4, but I think we have time for one more quick question.
Yeah. Jeez.
Thank you for your talks. I wanted to ask a question about the musical pillow and the design that you came up with. So I noticed that you had these embossed patterns on there, and you know, when you're watching the participants, when they're holding the pillow, they're stroking them and they're touching them. I wonder if that was a happy accident, or was that something that design was something that came through in the human-centered approach?
Yeah, it came in this process that came up. Yeah, so I didn't focus on that aspect, but you could see it in the video that someone was tracing it. So we wanted to really have something that was tactile. So that's why we put this kind of, it's vinyl, how do you call it? It's vinyl, right? Yeah. So it's deliberate, but it was not easy to make something that people could not just rip off, right? So we had to really find a kind of process to produce this so that it would stay on and keep working. Yeah, but it was a deliberate design choice to do it. Also to keep it a bit more abstract. Sometimes we see in design work that people want to make everything a bit old looking for people with dementia, but actually what we found is that it's not necessary. They just need something that is a bit contrasting, right? That it speaks to them, but also kind of invites them to engage. It doesn't need to be per se something that is kind of old looking or having kind of old patterns here. So yeah, good point. Yeah.
I think we will say thank you to both our speakers, and we have tea and biscuits and cookies and things over there. So you'll be around afterwards. If you have a question, please, get some tea and go and talk to them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.